start of our program. I'll do my part so as not to take off of Dr. Dvir's part. I want to welcome you all to Historic B'nai Jacob Synagogue. We're honored to participate in today's presentation. Our synagogue was founded and built by Jewish immigrants from the area then known as the Pale, and what is now Lithuania. We're told that they settled in Middletown in the late 19th century because they felt comfortable here. They were welcomed here and were able to businesses and educate their children and build the synagogue in 1906. And the ecumenical spirit included our shul in its annual distributions of trust income for local houses of worship, brought school children and their parents to visit our shul and learn our history, featured our shul in local newspaper articles, and included our members in many educational and festive programs. Our neighbors watched out for the building when it was vacant, and they helped with mowing the lawn and shoveling the snow. The shul is a school bus stop to this day. Our neighbors worked with us to get our shul on the National Register of Historic Places in 1985 so that it would not be gobbled up by a commercial redevelopment project. And still, today, even in such a place, we have security guards here for today's program because we have seen or heard how things may be brought from afar, mindful from our recent celebration of Purim, timeless lessons from the book of Esther of the victory of love, prayer and dedication, information and resistance over hate, intolerance, and suspicion. Students and faculty members from the nearby Penn State Harrisburg campus and from the Penn State Medical School in Hershey have contributed to the life of our shul for many years, including the faculty members and their students who got the shul its National Register status, those who have led our congregation, and those who have helped bring today's program to you. I want to thank Dr. Edward Beck, one former Penn State faculty member, for his ideas for and writing the grant that was awarded to support today's program and chairing our shul's committee to bring the program to you today. I also want to thank Dr. Alana Delaney, our shul's coordinator for the program, for her work in bringing today's program to you. And I also want to thank the Jewish Community Foundation of Central Pennsylvania and the Lipset Philanthropic Fund for sponsoring today's program. And of course, our thanks to Professor Boaz Dvir, our speaker today, for the important work he is doing and will be speaking about today, and whom I have the honor to introduce to you. Boaz Dvir is an assistant professor at Penn State's College of Communications Department of Journalism, where he also directs the Hamill Family Human Rights Initiative and the Holocaust, Genocide, and Human Rights Education Initiative in partnership with the Pennsylvania Department of Education to provide K-12 teachers with materials and skills to teach difficult topics. Professor Dvir is an award-winning filmmaker who tells stories of ordinary people who transform into trailblazers. His films have been distributed by PBS, Hulu, Amazon Prime, The New York Times, and others. Lifetime and Investigation Discovery have incorporated footage from his documentaries into their programs. He's also received a Lilly Endowment Grant to research spiritual aspects of the Holocaust. Professor Dvir wrote a syllabus on multimedia journalism ethics for Harvard University's Kennedy School. He also wrote a chapter for Homegrown in Florida, an anthology that includes childhood stories by Tom Petty and others. And he created a documentary short about PALS, which helped that nonprofit, which aids troubled teens, receive an official nomination for a Nobel Peace Prize and raise hundreds of thousands of dollars in grants. And of course, you can read a lot more about Professor Dvir on the internet. He will be speaking today on the need for Holocaust education in an era of rising anti-Semitism. After the presentation, there will be some time for you to ask questions and answers. And we are also requesting that before you leave, you fill out a short evaluation program, which will be available at the end of the program. And of course, after the program, we invite you all to come downstairs to enjoy some refreshments. Now, please welcome with me Professor Boaz Dvir.
Hello, hello. Thank you for being here. So I'm a secular Israeli, which means the last time I stood at a synagogue on the podium was during my bar mitzvah. I hope you're not planning to throw candy at me at any time. I mean, that was fun then, but and really, thank you for being here. I thought we would have a very small crowd because Penn State, I don't know if you know, they're playing in, I guess you don't know, otherwise they're playing for the Big Ten championship at 3:30. I figure everyone would stay home and watch it, but thank you. You're taping the game. I shouldn't give you this. I'll be checking the score in the middle. Don't take it personally. I won't tell you if you're taping the game. I won't mention it. I am going to look at my cell phone just really quick, but I'm not texting or taking a pic. No, I'm not tweeting or anything. I just want to thank people, and I want to make sure I get it right. So I want to thank first and foremost Ed Beck. I hope you're seeing us. He's zooming in as we speak. Bruce Barron, Larry Kappenstein, yes. Ilana Delaney, there you are. Paulette, where's Paulette? Yes. I want to thank Ray Rosen and the Rosen family. Thank you so much for your support. I want to thank Vink Hamill, who's also watching us as we speak, Elliot and Sue Weinstein, and our intern Sam. So what we want to talk about today is this notion of, can Holocaust education help solve this problem that we now have? What's the problem? Rising anti-Semitism. All right? That's what we want to explore. And if so, if it can make a difference, how? How can it actually help alleviate the rising tides of hate that we're seeing? And by the way, seeing in strange places, right? Like, it's not like always what you expect, let's say, neo-Nazis or KKK members. It seems to be like popping up in all sorts of peculiar spots in society. Now, if we had the time, and if I had that expertise, maybe we could first explore, well, what is this thing we call anti-Semitism? I'm not an expert on anti-Semitism. I can talk about it just like you could talk about it, you know? We all have our own views on knowledge, first-hand, second-hand. Some of us have faced it personally, maybe in a subtle way, maybe in a more overt way. Some of us know of people. I'm pretty much in that same camp. What I will say in regards to today's topic, which is connecting it to the Holocaust, is that it's clear to me, again, speaking more as a novice on this. I'll get to my expertise soon and that will be the majority of the talk. But speaking more as a novice on this, I think anti-Semitism post-Holocaust is different than anti-Semitism before the Holocaust. That's my observation. That the two kind of connect so closely today, right? To begin with, you know, anti-Semites used the Holocaust as a weapon against Jews, denying it, minimizing it, you know, sometimes just saying you deserved it, or God knows what else. And I think that's just a couple of examples. So I think when we talk about the Holocaust and anti-Semitism, if you think of a Venn diagram, they kind of overlap as topics quite a bit in today's age. But of course, we want to focus on whether or not Holocaust education, particularly in the K-12 space, can alleviate this problem. And if so, how? How can it do that? So if you look at Holocaust education, let's talk about Holocaust education. I do have more knowledge about that than I do about anti-Semitism. And although one other point I want to quickly just make on the side, again, as an observation, not from a point of expertise, about anti-Semitism, is that I think it's not, yes, it's been around for thousands of years, but I don't think it's been around continuously. I think there are examples of places and eras that were devoid of anti-Semitism, interestingly enough, for the most part. Today, here in America, that's not the case, right? That's unfortunately not the case. So when we talk about Holocaust education, it's really interesting. Today, let's talk about today, and then let's talk a little bit about the history of it, and then connect it right back to anti-Semitism. So today, in this country, 22 states require the teaching of the Holocaust at least once in the K-12 space, often more than once. Pretty good. That's like about half the states. And some of them are the bigger states like New York and Florida. So, more than half the country. Now, what's interesting is that even in the other states, the 28 other states, there's an indirect requirement for the teaching of the Holocaust through curriculum and testing. So take South Carolina as an example. This summer, our initiative from Penn State, the one I direct, is going to begin a training program for teachers in South Carolina. They do not have a Holocaust education requirement directly, embedded into their system by their legislature, much like these other 22 other states that said, this is the law and you must follow it. But they still have to teach the Holocaust, and it begins in the 5th grade. The 5th grade curriculum in South Carolina requires the teaching of the Holocaust. So the Holocaust is taught in America today, number one, so you know that. It is taught in America today. Number two, it's been taught for a long time. It started in the early 70s. I'm talking about the K-12 space. I'm not talking about the college level or programming that you see from museums and other institutions, which are great. We have great museums. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about in the K-12 system, you have Holocaust education in every state today, and it's been around since the 70s. And it's not just public schools. Just before we launched this initiative in 2019, just before it, just as the idea was percolating, I did a Holocaust program at a Catholic school outside of Philadelphia. Just as a quick example. And the students were just so engaged and so thoughtful. It was really a great experience for me. So it's taught everywhere. It's been taught since the 70s. Now, the Holocaust is obviously a very complex topic to teach, very complex. And there are certainly controversies within it, which I can name if we have time, might be interesting. But the idea of a district teaching the Holocaust is not controversial. I do not know of a single instance in this country where a school board was asked to stop teaching the Holocaust. I don't know of such a case. It may exist, but it's not something that's prevalent. On the other hand, there are other difficult topics where we see that kind of controversy all the time, for years now. For years, and it's still going on. You want to try to teach gender today, in some districts, good luck. So some parents may storm the school board, may be protesting. And I'm talking gender or evolution or some simple topic, or even slavery. And then, of course, there are topics that forget about it. I mean, there's a riot, of course. And by the way, I don't necessarily say they're wrong to be upset, like critical race theory, which should not be taught in a K-12 space, belongs as a theory in graduate school. So you have all these other topics that people are up in arms about. They're really upset. They're really, they will not have it. That's not the case with the Holocaust. There doesn't seem to be an uproar about it. It's being taught. It's being taught. It's being embraced. Okay? So, on a simplistic level, the next question should be, well, if that's the case, why is there rising anti-Semitism, if indeed the two are connected? And this is where there's debate. This is where there's debate around this topic. The debate is, does Holocaust education really alleviate, really remedy the issue of anti-Semitism? Are we seeing that? Some people say yes. Yes, it can. Others say no. Some are in the middle. Some say it depends. Some say it depends. I'm in that camp. The initiative is in that camp. We believe that it can, but has to be done right. And we'll talk a lot about how do you do it right and what are some of the issues. But before I get there, I want to continue talking about Holocaust education. Besides the fact that it's been taught since the 70s, throughout the country, in every state, still being taught today, really embraced by teachers and students. Besides all that, you got to remember that the Holocaust benefits from other support systems that are lacking for many other difficult topics. We have, for instance, hundreds, not dozens, hundreds of incredible, truly excellent teacher training programs around the country. The Shoah Foundation does it, the U.S. Holocaust Memorial Museum does it, Classroom Without Border does it, and on and on and on and on, all these groups. And these trainings, anyone ever been to one of these trainings that they do? Oh, you've been. So I don't have, amazing stuff, right? And they really do it so beautifully. I mean, you know, they might bring you to DC to spend time at the museum there for a week or two and really bring some great lecturers and give you amazing material. They might fly you to Poland to visit the camps or to Israel to visit Yad Vashem. They do amazing stuff, right? And then on top of that, the Holocaust also has great museums connected to it. Some of the best museums around. By the way, some great technology. Some of the best augmented reality and virtual reality teaching tools that exist today exist within the Holocaust realm. I was blown away when I visited the Shoah Foundation's office. It's not an office, it's a big space on the University of Southern California campus. Ilana, were you ever there? Because you're from San Diego. You visit? Yeah, it's terrific. And you get to sit in one of their cubicles. You get to sit and interview like you're talking, like I'm talking to you, a Holocaust survivor. He's not there, but you just picked him from, you know, a menu of Holocaust survivors, and you can converse with him. It's his image projected onto a screen, and he's able to answer you. It's amazing. Like you ask a question freely, and the AI already programmed the answers, and he's conversing with you. It's incredible. So while we at the initiative believe that yes, the effective instruction of the Holocaust can make a difference, we also have to recognize at the same time that it has not met its potential. When you add it all up, including the billions of dollars that have been spent on Holocaust education, billions of dollars, a lot of it from very generous Jewish people who've donated, but also from government sources and foundations and grants and you name it, right? When you add all that up, when you look at the amazing, truly remarkable source material that we have around the Holocaust, incredible books, right? Like Primo Levi and Elie Wiesel and Anne Frank, and these are just three of hundreds of incredible examples. And just mind-blowing films and documentaries. Even Schindler's List, which I think is quite a remarkable movie, actually. I actually think it's a really remarkable movie, among many others. When you add it all up, we should be talking about golfing today or basketball, not anti-Semitism. Right? What it should have added up to since the 70s, we should be seeing results. And not just in terms of anti-Semitism, but in other areas too. I'll start from the small and I'll go to the big. Let's start small. Awareness of the Holocaust. Young people should know about the Holocaust, shouldn't they? They should know about it, right? With all this in place, they should at least know about it. I got news for you, they don't know about it. They don't. Study after study shows it. If you start to dig into these studies, it actually gets almost, I hate to use that word, but that's how I couldn't help myself, laughable. Yeah, 4 out of 10 young Americans don't know what the Holocaust is. 7 out of 10 don't know what Auschwitz is. But like 2 out of 10 can't even tell you when the Holocaust happened. Some of them think it happened during the Civil War. That was my reaction. Or the Vietnam War. They don't know about it. I see it. I've been a college professor now for 18 years. I see it. I screened one of my documentaries about a Holocaust survivor named Michel Cogeot at a major university. I won't give the name, I won't embarrass them. They were fabulous. They were really great. I really loved it. And when I go to universities and I do screenings or lectures, I get nice turnouts. But I always look at the audience to see how many undergrads are there. And usually, the majority of the audience are my colleagues, professors, and graduate students and community members that come. These are usually open to the public, free events. And I get, maybe 20 undergrads, usually. That's the truth. I'll have maybe 80 people, and only 15 or 20 will be undergrads. I want to reach the young people, so I look for that. This time at this major university, there were 100 people there, and about, I would say, 75, 80 of them easily were undergrads. It was just packed with undergrads. I don't know what they did. I think they gave them extra credit or pizza or something. I don't know how they did it. I should have really asked, because it was really, they did very well. And after this screening, it's a long film. It's almost 2 hours, and the Q&A went on for more than an hour. Then there's a long line of students talking to me, and at the very, very tail end of this is like we're getting past 11 o'clock at night, are these two clearly freshmen. How do I know they're freshmen? 18 years in college, I know freshmen when I see them. And they're sheepishly approaching me, and they say to me, "We didn't know about this." I go, "Don't feel bad. Even Holocaust scholars have never heard of Michel Courgeot. That's why I made the documentary. How many of you ever heard of Michel Courgeot?" No, that's the point. They go, "No. We've never heard about any of this." I came face to face with two students at a major U.S. university, highly ranked, who literally have not even heard the term Holocaust, knew nothing about it. Now, this is a small example of the problem. I'll jump right to the big problem. What's our rallying cry around Holocaust education? It's not just to, raise awareness. It's not just to reduce anti-Semitism. What's the big rallying cry? Never forget, but also never again. Never forget, yes, but also never again. Has that happened? Has it really, is it true? Never again? No. How about sadly again and again and again and again? So what's the problem and how can we fix it? I mentioned before that the initiative recognizes these two dichotomies. We recognize that on one hand, Holocaust education, if done right, can make a difference, can even lead to implementing that rallying cry and making it the truth, certainly raising awareness. But we also recognize that there's a problem. And that's where we come in with a plan, with a new approach that now we know is brand new, that didn't exist, in trying to bridge the gap between this incredible opportunity that we have with all of these laws and resources and investments and source material, with all of that, and translating it into actual results for us, the Jewish people, but also for democracy, for society in general, and for kids, individually, one by one. And we think we figured it out. We don't know for sure, but so far so good. We're finishing up our second year, and as a Research One university at Penn State, we study everything in a very scholarly fashion, very scientific manner. And the data we've collected so far shows that it's working. Actually, working better than we ever expected at this stage. So here's what we do. I'll describe what we do, and I'll describe how it differs from what's being done in traditional Holocaust education, plus in traditional professional development. How many are aware of professional development for teachers, that structure? Do you know much about that? A little bit. Okay, most of you don't. So every industry has professional development, right? I know that even as a professor, I see some professional development emails coming in. Sometimes I tell myself, I should go do that. I've never done it. In 18 and a half years, I've not done one. Not one. I mean, I've done the required, like sexual harassment training online. I do the bare minimum, and like everybody else, I pass, hopefully, and I get my certificate, and that's it. But I've never voluntarily went to one of these. I've never done that. I haven't. But when you're a teacher, it's different. When you're a teacher, your whole career depends on professional development. It's the way you get accredited, certified, recertified. It's the way you get promoted. It's the way you climb up the salary scale. It's really important for the districts. It's usually part of their bargaining agreement with the teacher union. It's like a crucial, it's almost like a do or die. It's really important. So I'm going to compare what we do with both traditional Holocaust education and traditional professional development. And I'll compare what we do. So I'll start with Holocaust education. I mentioned those great programs. What often happens with these great programs is they bring in superstar teachers for a week or 2 or 3, sometimes even a month. They fly them, they wine, they dine them, they give them the best content in the world. Then they send them back home, and then the teachers are to implement what they learn. Right? And we have on our team, by the way, many of such participants, including at least 5 U.S. Holocaust Memorial Holocaust Fellows who have been through the whole program. When these teachers come back, they're often tasked with 2 things. One is to produce a project about what they've done, some sort of a project about it, that then they might present to the school or to the community. And second, find a way to fit it into what they have during that school year. This is a problem for 2 reasons. Number one, the teachers already have way too much on their plate. Way too much on their plate. We don't want to add to it, we want to take away from it. Number two, it's an added on project. How long can it really last? Is it sustainable? Can it be effective? And it's so content driven. Does it have the right pedagogy to engage the students in an effective way? So what we do in our program is we not only recommend, we don't even have to insist, it's required in our program that no participant ever takes on anything extra whatsoever. So after customizing each program at the level of the district or whatever other entity with which we're partnering, at that point, we go down to each participant's level and we create a 3-legged stool for them. One leg is, and we usually launch in the summer, what difficult topic do you have this year that you're going to have to teach anyway? It might be the Holocaust, but it might be something else. It might be slavery. We have a high school business teacher this year. His difficult topic, is income inequality. So we identify it. That's the topic they're going to have to teach anyway. Now let's help them teach it better. Then we figure out what are some pain points that you're facing under the umbrella of professional development and your career trajectory. Maybe they have to prepare for an evaluation. Maybe they're going up for accreditation. Maybe, they're trying to climb up the salary scale. Maybe it's a couple of pain points. Whatever it is, we solve it for them together as part of the plan. And number 3, we connect it to state standards. Because that's what drives education, right? State standards, meeting them, passing tests, graduating, moving on to the next level, going to college. This is what drives it. So let's connect it to it right away, right from the start. And with that 3-legged stool, then the teacher embarks on her journey. Now I'll continue to compare. In traditional professional development, what you have is mostly, not always, but often, for-profit companies, but even when they're not for-profit, they operate much in the same manner, swooping into a district or a school, sometimes maybe even more than one district, sometimes they're regional, and delivering a lecture to them. Now, that lecture is cookie cutter. It's being attended by hundreds of teachers. Let's take, though, the best case scenario, which is rare. Let's take the 5 to 10%, in which case that lecture happens to be really relevant to them, because most of them it's not that relevant, even if it's great. Some of these lectures are great. But I'm talking about their relevancy, not their quality. Although, by the way, some of their quality is sometimes mediocre too. But let's say that it's great and relevant. Still doesn't do much. Because it's just a lecture. There's no accountability, there's no support mechanism, there's no follow-up, there's no classroom application. And let me ask you a question. Shouldn't professional development for teachers be all about classroom application? What else should it be about? Why are we wasting taxpayer money unless it's going to help the students? Right? And so we flip that model. We make it a classroom application program from day one. Our program is nothing but implementation. That's it. It's implementation, implementation, implementation. Just like in real estate, it's location, location, location. Same idea. That's what we do. And so from day one, our participants are action planning. Action planning for their year. Lesson planning, writing lesson plans, and starting to collect data, starting to look at content, because often they think they have the content, and we're not there to provide the content. We're there to provide a pedagogy. But through our pedagogy, they start to understand, some of the curated content that I thought was so perfect may not be so perfect, right? And so they start to look for better content and a new way of engaging. Now I'm going to completely venture off comparing ourselves to traditional models of education in Holocaust and in traditional professional development, and tell you more about our program and what we do, and why it's effective and why it does have a chance to turn the instruction of difficult topics into societal transformation that we believe can, in time, uproot hate. Number one, we have a very long horizon, very long horizon. We're not thinking, next month, next year. We're thinking 10, 15, 20 years down the road. We all want faster solutions, I understand. Antisemitism is rising now. Polarization is happening today. But these short-term solutions just don't work. It has to be very long-term. It has to begin with kids. I'm often asked, why don't you do this with college students? I mean, I teach college students. Why don't you do this with college students, right? Been asked that many times. And not always so politely either. And I give them the blunt answer. It's too late. It's too late. Heck, I'm starting to think, how can we do this work? Yeah, how can the Holocaust Education Initiative get into preschool, maybe, 2-year-olds, 3-year-olds? I'm not kidding. The younger the better. Not that we teach them about Auschwitz, that's not it, right? It's customized, it's appropriate. All of our training is done through 2 lenses. And I'll describe the model that we use, the professional development model that we use in a second. All of it's done through 2 lenses, one of which is a trauma-informed lens, which means we equipped our participants with the ability to identify and cope with trauma among their students, to avoid triggering trauma, which can be done. You can trigger trauma if you show the wrong film, the wrong images, use the wrong language with the wrong group of students. And trauma can come out in various ways, by the way. It's not always what we think of. I've read a couple of cases about a situation where after they were taught about the Holocaust, middle school students marched through the hallways like Nazi stormtroopers, making the Nazi salute. To me, that sounds like trauma. To me, that sounds like a way they're coping with it versus these kids suddenly turning into, neo-Nazis. That's what it sounds like to me, like a whole group, mass of them. So you have to be careful not to trigger trauma. You have to know that sometimes you have to bring it to the surface if it's there. So that's one lens. The other lens we use is an educational equity lens. Our educational equity lens, much like everything else that we do, by the way, everything else that we do, is apolitical. Because we do not deliver content, we do not have a curriculum, we have no agenda, it's purely pedagogical tools, so we're apolitical, and therefore, by the way, we have very strong support on both sides of the aisle. And if you're wondering, well, how is it that far-right Republicans are some of our strongest supporters? I can talk about that maybe during the Q&A. If anyone's interested, I can talk about that some more. But they are. So our educational equity lens is a very simple but powerful one. It says this: every single student counts. Every single student. As you know from the introduction, I make documentaries. I'm a college professor. I was a journalist. As you might guess, yes, me personally, I admit it, I have a soft spot for vulnerable communities. That's me. I do. I like to help high-risk children. That just tags at my heart. But as the director of the initiative, that's irrelevant. It doesn't matter to us. A rich private school is equally important to us as a struggling, poor school in a rough area. There is no difference. And it's not just a philosophy, it's practical. Because guess what? Those kids at that very wealthy school that might have all the resources in the world, they still need this kind of education that they would not otherwise get. And I'll describe what the students get out of it in a minute, and you'll see. They wouldn't otherwise get that. And they need it for their own lives, and our society needs for them to have it. So all schools count. Public, private, parochial. We've talked to the Catholic Diocese. We're working with the Navajo Nation out in Arizona. It doesn't matter to us. We finally did meet with a private school. Usually when we meet with a partner, it's via Zoom, or maybe one of us will go over there and meet with them in person in a little office somewhere, This private school, 5 of their executives came up in a van that they rented, and they drove up the night before, stayed in a really nice hotel, For all I know, they might have played golf, spent a whole day with us. So yes, they have different resources. We recognize that. We didn't treat them any differently. We didn't look down on them. Their students, their teachers matter to us equally. So those are the 2 lenses we use. The mechanism that we use, I just wanted to see how am I doing with time. Okay? Okay. Because we do want to have a Q&A. The mechanism that we use is called inquiry. How many of you have heard the term inquiry in education? Have you ever heard inquiry? So usually that term is used in social science. There is a mechanism in social sciences called inquiry that does overlap with the professional development mechanism that we utilize, in the sense that it focuses on questioning rather than giving answers. But they have the same name. They're really 2 different things. The model that we use has been around for many decades. It is exalted, studied, and utilized at the higher education level in a way that is mostly intellectual. Like you might have, I know, a bunch of professors who study it and know all about it and think it's the best thing in the world. They don't necessarily use it themselves. It's kind of an interesting animal. It's way, way, way underutilized in our educational system because it has been proven by researchers over and over again in countless studies to be by far the most effective mechanism. It's really a shame that it's underutilized, and we have often found that when it is used, it's not truly used the right way. People don't really get it. It's a shame. So we use that mechanism. Our innovation, besides the 2 lenses that we bring to it, is that we marry it to difficult topics. You see, what's interesting about this is even inquiry, which has been around for decades and has been studied so much, has never been used with difficult topics. It's been used with reading and math and science and what you think of as education. It's been used to help teachers become action researchers and own their own practice. It's been used but it has never been coupled with the instruction of difficult topics. And at first glance, it's peculiar. But when you look under the hood, it isn't. People are afraid to touch difficult topics. They're controversial. It's a minefield. And in fact, what happens with teachers most of the time is they just shy away from it, which means they might not teach it at all, skip it, or they might rush through it or just deliver the basic facts to the students. What we show the teachers is we can help you not just do this bravely and confidently with a support system in place in a way that emboldens you, but we can help you really reach much higher educational objectives, much higher than the simple dissemination of knowledge. I'm not against the dissemination of knowledge. I was a journalist for 15 years. I still teach journalism. I've been teaching journalism for 18 years. I'm all about, yes, please, knowledge, facts. Believe me, I'm all for it. I don't know that that's where the problem lies with our society right now, lack of knowledge. I think we all have a lot of knowledge. You can access it now. It's just, right? And now there's AI that can help you kind of figure out and sort through that knowledge. I mean, it's just endless. So I mean, there's criticism of our educational system, the K to 12. I think some of it's merited. I'm not sure that it's because it doesn't generate enough knowledge. Because, for all the criticism we have of the K to 12 system, how bad could it be if at the same time we here in this country have by far, without a doubt, and there's no question about it, the best economy in the world? Does anyone question for a minute that the United States has the best economy in the world? It's not perfect, I get that. And maybe there's a recession coming, but still, what economy even comes close to the American economy? No, China? I don't think so. No. That's what we were threatening. No. What, France? Who? What? No. Canada? I mean, no. By far the best economy in the world, right? By far the best universities in the world. By far the best companies in the world, right? Apple and Google and Microsoft. I mean, we can go on and on and on. So they must be doing something right on the knowledge side. We believe where we can be helpful and where we can uproot hate and we can solidify our democracy and get rid of this polarization that we're seeing is by helping teachers understand that when they effectively teach difficult topics, they can aim higher. Go beyond the facts. Go beyond the facts and instill in the students insight into the human condition. You know what happens in K to 12? You all remember, right? You might cram for a test and maybe even ace it, and the next day all that knowledge is gone from your head. Most of what they taught me, I don't remember from K to 12. Right? The skills have stayed with me, but the knowledge, I mean, the skills like reading, yeah, okay, thankfully, writing, some math, not a lot. A little, enough to balance the checkbook once in a while, that's about it. And do budgets for the initiative, yes, that too now. So strengthening my math skills as a result. But knowledge, fleeting, very fleeting. Insight stays with you. And then we work with the teachers on contextualizing it for the here and now, to take those lessons from the past and making them relevant for today. Because guess what? Many of these difficult topics that have to do with historical events are quite peculiar to our kids. And to ourselves probably too. I mean, besides being horrified every time I read about the Holocaust, and I'm not an expert on the Holocaust, I'm a student of the Holocaust. I read about the Holocaust, I study it. I don't know how anyone can ever be an expert. Every day I learn something new about it. It's mind-blowing. But one of my feelings that I walk away with on almost a daily basis is it feels like it happened on a different planet. Like, what is that? Is that likely to happen here like that? I don't think so. I don't want to say it's zero chance. It's 1 in a trillion, right? But at the same time, there are lessons we can draw from 1930s Germany and Europe and America, 1930s America, that could be applicable for today. That's different. That can help us with the real current problems, and we have plenty of them here now. So we work with them on that. We also work with the teachers on instilling skills in those students, life skills, critical thinking, active listening, empathy. These are valuable skills that will serve the students really well and serve society really well in the future. They're also the kind of skill sets that let the students know, oh, what you're learning now is applicable today. A lot of education in K to 12 is very future-oriented. Maybe if you do well in biology, maybe one day you'll be a doctor, right? Maybe if you do well in math, maybe one day you'll be an accountant, I mean, it's true for everything there. Even if you're playing football, maybe one day you'll get to play football in college. It's very future-oriented. But these kind of skills, you develop critical thinking, you develop empathy, suddenly your social connections get better. Suddenly you can navigate life better. Suddenly you can determine as a kid what the truth is for yourself. So no matter what you might hear online, or from your friends, or from your strange, feisty, uncle at Thanksgiving, you'll determine what the truth is. You'll figure it out, and you'll decide what to do about it. We also work with the teachers on enabling those students to strengthen their identities and sharpen their perspectives. See, what's happening right now in practically every classroom, I've not seen an exception yet other than what happens through our program. I'm sure they exist, but they're very rare. I've not come across them, is that principals, teachers are simply prohibiting political speech in their classrooms. They just don't allow it so that there isn't a big fight, right? That's a shame. That's a shame. We work with the teachers on turning that around and creating safe zones where every student feels comfortable and safe to voice their opinions, voice their concerns, raise questions, and strengthen their perspective and identity. Because when they want to be heard, then they better listen. When they want to be respected, then they have to respect others. And now suddenly what was once, a no politics zone becomes this safe environment for students where they can conduct civil and productive civic discourse, which in time, not today, not tomorrow, but 10 years, 15 years, if we do this in enough classrooms, will change society. They say we argue too much. I say we don't argue enough in our society. That's the problem. We all go into our echo chambers and complain about each other. Them, right? These people. We should get together and talk. It's okay, different points of view. Every Sunday, I get on a call with one of my best friends, and sometimes it luckily doesn't happen, but quite often it happens. We get into a political debate. He's on one side. I can let you guess what it is. I'm on the other side. You probably already know what that is. We've done this now at least 20 years, this phone call. It's a 20-year long, every Sunday phone. God forbid if I don't call. Texts and all sorts of, and he'll call my wife, And it's great. And we're he's one of my best friends in the world. And so, so it's good. We argue politics. Have we ever agreed? I don't think once. I really don't think even one time. It doesn't matter. It's great. He challenges me. He makes me rethink things or figure out how to, defend it better. Or he might throw a fact at me that I didn't know that later I check. Sometimes it's not such a fact, but, that could be my own bias. Who knows? No, I'm not going to vote for Trump. I'll just say that, okay? In case you're wondering. I'm not voting for Trump. I'll give it away. I'm not a Trump supporter. So anyway, it's healthy. It's important. It makes our society better. And where do we begin and end this? Is in the K-12 space. If we do it there, then our society changes. If we don't, then we're just going to keep doing this again and again. It's actually going to get worse. It's that simple. So I see all the classrooms on the Pennsylvania map where teachers now have adapted our skill set to do this and to create civil discourse as point of light. And when we see all these points of light throughout the country, I'll know that we're on the right path to changing our way and getting rid of polarization. Not of disagreements. We're always going to disagree, but we'll do it in a better way. And when these kids start to see that other kids have other perspectives, other identities, and that's actually enriching to their life, and it doesn't threaten them. On the contrary, it helps them solidify who they are with empathy and critical thinking. Well, then, you start to get rid of hate. You start to uproot hate, including anti-Semitism. So it's really not about awareness, right? Because awareness by itself is not going to do it. That's the other problem with Holocaust education. So much of it rests on the idea that if they know about it, then they will change. There's just not enough evidence to show that. There are, bits and pieces of some data that shows really effective instruction of the Holocaust can make a difference and reduce anti-Semitism. Great. We want to make it all effective. But I think even then, either that effective instruction was not so fact-based and there were other aspects of it that emotionally engaged the students, or, maybe the results are not as strong as we think they are, or maybe they wouldn't have been anti-Semitic to begin with, but they could have still benefited from this kind of instruction. You don't have to, be an anti-Semite or a racist to benefit from growing up in a school system where you are empowered as a kid. We don't have agency for our children in this society, and I think that's a good thing for the most part, being a father of twin boys who are 6 years old and are two tornadoes who, go through the house destroying everything in their path on a daily basis. I don't think 8-year-olds should be driving. I don't think 9-year-olds should be smoking. I'm against all that. But when it comes to the instruction of difficult topics, we would benefit greatly by giving students agency. Because then the students can focus on what they want to learn. You see, what we do with our teachers is we take them from sages on the stage. I know that's hypocritical, me saying it. But like I said, I usually don't stand on a podium. And if it wasn't for the camera and the beamer in the middle, I probably would come down and speak with you. But, we take them from sages on the stage, and they're great at it. Many of them are great sages, to facilitators. We move them down and help them set the stage for learning. Instead of standing there and delivering answers at their kids, answers, right? The teachers deliver information, answers, take questions. We say, forget all that. Give agency to the kids. Work with the kids on developing questions. Give them that skill set. That's where innovation comes from. Oh yeah, right? We're also the most innovative society in the world by far. Who's second to us in innovation? China? I don't think so. France? No. So let's keep that going, right? Well, coming up with questions is what drives innovation. And our kids, and I can tell you, seeing my own students at the college level, are not being given those skill sets anymore. They're so focused on absorbing information and regurgitating it that they forget that what's more important is knowing how to come up with compelling questions. So let's do that instead with the students. And then let them decide how to drive it and go figure out the truth for themselves and what to do with it. That becomes an experience for the students, and that's going to stay with them. And that's going to change them and transform them. And that's where we can get rid of anti-Semitism. That's how we do it. Not by, more great content and more trips to Poland. No. We should take all of that and throw it into a program like this. We would love to be replicated. We don't have to be the only ones doing it. We're building a model. We're a university. We're a nonprofit. We're not trying to own it or make it proprietary. On the contrary, we're about to submit our third paper to a peer-reviewed journal showing what we do to others so they can adapt it too. And use it. Because otherwise, honestly, we may be wasting our time. And I don't know that we can afford to waste more time right now in this world. I just don't know. Or waste money. I think we have to be wiser about our investments and our interactions with students. Through Holocaust education, we have an incredible opportunity to engage with students, with kids in this society. Let's use it wisely. Let's be innovative about it. Let's not just keep doing the same thing over and over again as we've done for 50 years, hoping we'll see different results, because we're not seeing different results. We're seeing the same results again and again and again. So that's my point. Can Holocaust education alleviate anti-Semitism? Yes. But it has to be approached in a new, innovative, bold way. I'll take questions if anyone has any questions. Yeah.
When you say an inquiry model of education, do you have age-appropriate source material and then have the teacher facilitate questions, or what exactly do you mean by that?
So inquiry, and I described some aspects of it, is a professional development model that enables educators to become action researchers of their own practice. So they examine their practice, they try new ways of approaching it, and they collect data and analyze that data, share that data. They also are guided to shifting their mindset from someone who lectures to someone who creates learning opportunities. So someone who controls to someone who shifts the control to the students. To someone who focuses on answers to someone who focuses on coming up with questions. To someone who says, this is it. To someone who says, there's different ways to look at this. It's not always so simple, right? So it's a whole different way. And teachers, for them, it's like, and it's not just in the United States. They teach this way in Europe. They teach this way in Israel. I mean, very much teachers deliver information. So it's a whole radical way of doing things. That's mostly what it is. Inquiry. It's not, now through that, as they now start to develop new kinds of lesson plans, of course they often have to bring in content. But now they look at content very differently. We also give them the tools to curate content better. So it is more age appropriate, so it doesn't trigger trauma. So it can be more part of a journey for the students rather than a set of facts. Yeah.
I love your ideas. They're wonderful.
You love what?
I love your ideas. They're wonderful.
Thank you.
My question is that intuitively, ultimately the school bell rings and they go home. I'd like to know what evidence you have or what your thoughts are, because they go home and yes, maybe they now know how to ask questions, but they face their parents, their role models, their sports heroes, their music heroes, many of whom are sprouting something about hate. How do you feel that will work, or how do you feel that works? Do you feel that really the students are going to say, no, you know, that's not true. I know my sports hero is saying the world is flat, but he can't be right, or how is that going to play out?
I think in several ways.
I'll jump to the least obvious, but more encompassing way first, and then I'll go down to the I'll go to the macro, and then I'll go to the micro. On a macro level, we believe that if we transform K-12 education into this model, teaching they have a lot of difficult topics, so I'm not even worried about them teaching it this way when it comes to other, like reading and math, that doesn't matter. But if all these really difficult topics, like I said, evolution, gender, civil war, slavery, Holocaust, others, on and all these topics, right? Excuse me, not to mention topics that come up in the news like school shootings and COVID, right? If all of these now are, let's say every teacher in this country teaches that way, we'll have a tipping point. We'll have a tipping point where society it's a new society. That's on the macro level. On the micro level, back to that individual student going back home, I don't know. It really depends. It depends. You know, where are they in the journey that they're taking? How many times have they done it? What age are they? What kind of hate are they being given? It could be that it's very overt, it's easier. Like, you know, if they go home, if they're a 10th grader and they've done this a couple times, and now they're exploring the Holocaust, but they're doing it in a new way where they decide what to explore, and they go home and they mention it to their parents, and the father says, oh, the Holocaust didn't happen. That might be easier. The student might say, this isn't what the teacher told me. This is what I discovered the Holocaust for myself. I did it. I looked at it. I saw the facts. It's undeniable. Now, whether or not that kid says it to their parents, they're going to think that. What could be more dangerous, and I think will take even more time, are the more subtle points of hate that they might get, right? Because again, if the student just learned this, and you know that, I mean, I tapped my 6-year-old on the back yesterday. Just tapped him on the back for no reason, you know. And he said to me, don't you know that can make a kid choke? I just read that. He can't even really read. I just read that can make a kid choke. You know. They're not, I mean, if they discover the facts for themselves, they're not shy about, you know, they're not gonna just take it. If it's more subtle, if the father says, you know, the Jews really like to make a big hoopla about that, versus it didn't happen, it can get murky. So I don't know. It really depends who the students is, who the parents are. What I do know is that it puts all of these students in a new position. Where are they on the spectrum? I don't know, but they're on the spectrum. Whereas before they were just being influenced, right? And now they're not. Now they might be here and not quite ready to confront their father, or they might be right here in their father's face. I don't know. But I know that through this, we're putting them on a new line and a new path that collectively will transform society if we do it. I'd love to take more questions. Yes?
I have one, Professor. I grew up in a Jewish neighborhood, and it was in the 60s, so we didn't have Holocaust education. But my history teacher, who was also the principal of our Hebrew school, made sure that the kids in our class, and it was probably 50%, 60% Jewish kids, knew what the Holocaust was. He would show a film called Let My People Go. I don't know if you've ever seen that documentary, very old documentary.
Oh, so this was in school they did this?
In school.
So you didn't have Holocaust education?
Because of Mr. Moscow.
Yeah.
Because of, it wasn't part of the curriculum,
Right.
but he He chose to do that on his own. So I guess as Manfred Moskoff and the Holocaust survivors that I grew up with in my neighborhood start dying out, and they've already started dying out, in the future, will that hinder the impetus for further Holocaust education because they're out of sight, out of mind, they're not there anymore, we don't really see Holocaust survivors, and in the future, do you think that will diminish the need for further?
Look, I mean, here's the truth. I'm amazed that the Holocaust is taught in the United States. I came here to this country, I was 13,
So I did middle school and high school here. And I was taught about the Holocaust at least twice during that time. Not once in all those years, through middle school and high school, not one time in any class was slavery ever mentioned. Not once. And that's still the case today. You know that there are kids graduating our American education system who never learn about slavery. Can you imagine a kid graduating from school in Germany and never learning about the Holocaust? I'm not equating the two. I'm just saying, so I'm amazed that we teach the Holocaust at all. I'm grateful for it. It seems like it's going to stick around, but we're not getting the effect out of it because we're focusing on awareness, focusing on facts. If we let the kids explore what they want around this topic of the Holocaust, right? And focus on questions and making it relevant and exploring it for themselves and figuring out the truth and then seeing what they want to do about it, I think it can have a much more lasting effect. And we can also, at the same time, as a side effect, raise awareness. So we don't have 7 out of 10 kids, not knowing what Auschwitz is, 4 out of 10 not knowing what the Holocaust is at all, and, a couple of them not knowing that it didn't happen in the Civil War of Vietnam, right? So I think we can make it stronger. I also think that we as Jewish people who care about Holocaust education need to broaden our definition. I think instead of focusing, and I'm the grandson of Holocaust survivors, and I've devoted a big part of my life to the Holocaust. Not an expert, but I've done a lot of projects around the Holocaust. A lot. Films and lectures and presentations and research and articles and on and on and on and on. So I want it to be remembered, personally. But I think we need to broaden it. I think we need to ask ourselves, what is it that we seek through this kind of education? And aim for those goals no matter how we get there. So sometimes it's not a straight line. If we can uproot anti-Semitism through effective instruction of all difficult topics like slavery, isn't that what we ultimately want? Right? Yes?
Right up front, I'm on my 3rd page of notes.
Okay.
It's fascinating, and of course, I believed and agreed with everything you were saying before I walked in. You're just reinforcing everything, and a brilliant presentation, and all sorts of fabulous things. I serve on a local school board, and of course, thankfully, in where we are, this is not true of all of our local school boards in central Pennsylvania, we've not had the CRT movement come in, or the anti-CRT. By the way, we don't teach CRT in any of our schools, you know that.
Yeah, of course.
And sitting next to me, it just happens to be our history department chair for our school district.
Great.
We're getting ready to have a conversation about, of course, the African American AP course that's got so much precedent. But here's my real question. I'm listening to all this and I'm going, absolutely right. I think we're about to do something with professional development for our students, potentially our teachers, I should say, which goes to our students. So here's the real question. As we and, folks like the two of us, obviously, I shouldn't speak for him, obviously agree with you, are convinced that we need to do these sorts of things, there are clearly opponents, I don't want to get political, but there are clearly opponents that are going to say, you're indoctrinating our children, you're brainwashing our children, so I'm already thinking of ways to fight against that nonsense. And I'm asking for your help to do that.
Excellent question. Thank you. And let's exchange business cards.
We're going to.
Maybe we can bring the initiative to your district.
Well, absolutely.
Let's do it. So we are the antidote to that. We are the antidote. We have faced
zero controversy, zero. We're apolitical, and we have strong support on both sides of the aisle. I mentioned earlier why. So why do, for example, even far-right politicians support us? several reasons. We actually meet a lot of, let's say, Republican objectives, such as professional development is an $18 billion industry in this country. And I have spoken to many hundreds of teachers about this myself, and have spoken to others who have themselves spoken to hundreds of teachers about this. And the most I've ever gotten, the highest evaluation I've ever gotten of existing professional development out of a teacher is mediocre. That's the best you're going to get. Most of them think it's a waste. So we are wasting time and money. Republicans hate waste. We are disrupting a professional development industry that is in dire need of disruption. So that's one. Second, we provide local control. It is that every one of our programs, like if we did this with your district, what is the name of your district, sir? Carlisle. Okay, so if we teamed up with Carlisle, we would actually customize the program to begin with at that level. Along many, by the way, different lines. For instance, do you want to create one that's required for certain teachers or opt-in? Do you want it to be for just a certain group of teachers, like social studies in high school, or all teachers? Do you want it to be all educators? Some of our programs have not just teachers, but also principals, and we have school counselors and school psychologists, right? So we customize it. It gives local control, which is what Republicans like. And we do not bring any content, any curriculum, any agenda, any indoctrination of any kind. Simply pedagogical tool. We make education stronger, better, more effective, and it helps the kids. Classroom application for the teachers and for the students. That's why the Catholic diocese is just as interested in our training as the Navajo Nation is, because we give them the tools to amplify their values. Now, you might say, well, what if it's values you don't agree with? Then we won't team up with them. If there's an entity that practices values that really we're opposed to do, we think are bad, we just won't work with them. So no, we would not work with, a neo-Nazi organization, probably, right? But in terms of amplifying anybody else's, and that's why we're the antidote to that. We can be pointed to and say, we're keeping out this kind of stuff by bringing this in. So let's exchange cards and talk about teaming up. We'd love to come help you. Yeah.
Hey, I'm Jeff Colbert. I'm a professor of American Studies here at Harrisburg.
Oh, cool. At Penn State, Harrisburg?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
I loved your talk.
Thank you.
I just wanted to say on the topic of critical race theory, I think there's a lot of misinformation flying around about what that term means.
Sure.
And critical race theory refers to the recognition of structural injustices that are designed, built into societies to keep people in positions of disempowerment. And many of the things that critical race theory, which is a problematic term that is often applied from without, addresses, also affect Jewish people very directly. So actually what you're describing, this intersectional approach that focuses not only on Holocaust education, which is critically, vitally important, obviously, but also on issues like slavery and legacy of racialized violence in the United States. All of that actually is critical race theory. So what you're describing here is doing what critical race supporters are calling for, recognizing the commonalities between oppressed groups and how, rather than pigeonholing one group's experiences, taking an intersectional approach, one which recognizes deep injustices that are at the core of American life, for example, because that's my focus as an American Studies professor, will benefit everyone. We can't have justice as long as injustice remains in one area for one group. So I think I applaud what you're doing. I think it's awesome, and I think it's embracing this kind of intersectional approach that's very encouraging.
Yeah, thank you. What I would say is we've avoided educational and political buzzwords as well. There are some that have tried to attach them to us, and we stay away from it, not because we agree or disagree, just because we provide clean, efficient, helpful tools for educators. So we don't even use terms like, a very, very popular term right now is emotional and social learning, for instance. Very big, very much, and a lot of people have tried to convince us to put it into our... We don't, because we want to empower the districts, the partners, the educators, the kids. It's not about us, it's about them. We mean it when we go in. That's how we're able to work with the Navajo Nation. When we started to speak with the Navajo Nation, they said to us, you are wasting your time. Because other universities have tried to work with us, and none has succeeded in all these years, not one. And then they told us, you're really crazy, because what you're trying to do with us is really ambitious. We proposed that we would help train their teachers, the Navajo teachers, on their number one educational goal. Now, to put it in perspective, the Navajo Nation is now sovereign. They have their own Department of Education that's independent. They happen to be in Arizona where we're doing the work. They're in other places too. But they report directly to the federal government, get their funding from them. And their number one goal was to start to incorporate character building into their teaching, which is a lot of what we do, is character building, really, if you had to summarize it. So here we are, a university telling them, we're going to come help you with your number one goal, character. Really? They said, come on, you're wasting your time. We're now setting up our second year with them, and already even talking about a third year. Why? Because we come in with this idea of, you drive it. We are here to learn from you, support you, and we mean it. And that's it. It's genuine. And that's why we're flying. But yes, there are many entry points in the work that's being done that invites everyone in. So just like you see these points that connect to your work, Professor, we've had far-right politicians see the same thing from their perspective. And that's the beauty of it, right? It really does create a tent that brings everyone in where we can work together. I'd love to see any other questions. Some really great questions so far. Yes, Ilana.
Just a quick comment. Thank you so much, Professor Dvir. This was very, very enlightening. And the fact that you and your team is doing such a holy work, you know, working on professional development, working with the students and so on. You have here educators, members of the community, leaders of the community, students, teachers. How can we support you and your team going forward?
One thing that folks can do is put us in touch with school districts and other entities, including even, like I said, parochial school, private schools, to see if we can partner with them. Elliot, my friend, set up a talk for me at the Rotary Club in York. What is it, the 16th largest or something in the world? What? 23rd, okay, you're dropping in the rankings there. And there was a teacher there. She came to the Rotary Club. She was a teacher there. She connected us to her district. She asked me during a Q&A, can you come in? I said, yes, of course. She connected us to the district. Her district was so eager to get this done. We already customized the plan. They said, can we pay you in advance for next year? Because we want to make sure we nail this down. Because we actually have a waiting list right now. We actually have a waiting list. So yeah, sometimes this is how this happens. We're not out there yet making a push, promoting it, because we would be overwhelmed. We're not quite ready. We want to make sure that the quality of each and every one of our partnership is at the very, very top. But through these connections, and we are interested in doing some work, for instance, in this area. Paulette and I were talking about us wanting to really come into the Harrisburg area in particular for several reasons. And so if someone knows someone that would benefit from this, please connect us to them. That would be the number one thing. Yeah.
Everyone will appreciate if you can fill out the short assessment that we have so we know how to progress and improve and so on, and maybe bring more plans like this and programs like this here. We have lovely receptions downstairs if you'd like to continue talking, schmoozing, and so on.
Take your time on
Thank
the
you so
steps,
much.
please, going down.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.